The future is here.
The last card we'll talk about, we call Nedjem Sekhum. And you say, oh, well, you already mentioned 3 Sekhum scepters. Well, the sistrum is also called a Sekhum. There's 2 sistrums. You have the Sechet and then you have the Sekhum. Of course, you're wondering, why would the same word for power be used to describe music? What is it that about the sistrum deals with power? Well, once again, going back to the first Ka we spoke about, going back to the second Ka we spoke about with Heka and sound and the origination of in this relationship between power, authority, and sound. The sistrum was used for rituals to get away the so-called dark spirits, to get away the negative energies, to uplift the vibrations in their environment. It was also used as a celebration tool. So we're getting from the Kemetic Kushite perspective this association between joy, power, spirit, psychic rotation. We're getting all this wrapped together in one, and it's in the word Sekhum, and the powers of sound. Now, where we associate it also with Nedjem, also called Nedjem or pleasure or joy, is the fact that pleasure is power. Pleasure is power. From the modern spiritual perspective, we're told that we should get away from pleasure. The Indo-European approach to pleasure. Remember, as I said earlier about sept, there's a devaluing of women from an Indo-European perspective. Women are inferior. So all things that might be associated with women, like sexual pleasure, are going to have some level of inferiority placed upon it because it's about power. Men don't want to be controlled by the powers of sex from women, or how they feel, or the weakness that they feel when they engage with women. So from a Kemetic back ancestral perspective, power is pleasure. Pleasure is how we honor God. Our rituals, our celebrations are always upbeat. We're dancing. We're going into trance. Those gamma waves are going through the brain and we're just feeling excited. We're visualizing our purpose. We're visualizing our nation. It's power. And we know that gamma waves and visualizing according to gamma waves actually can bring your manifestations in quicker, meaning I can affect the environment and reality much faster. That's the definition of power. Power is not just controlling things. The actual definition of power, when we look at physics, is the ability to move a certain amount of mass or force quickly. Pleasure is power. And of course, those of you who are thinking about like Tantra, it goes along those lines, where Sekhum, or Nedjem Sekhum, as we call it, is connected with not just your power of visualization and manifestation as you're engaging in the sexual act, but also regeneration. Remember, User deals with sex. Everything about the story, the Immaculate Conception, everything about him being associated with the planet Venus, everything about Ptah, Kinsu dealing with sex. All of this has, because sex is pretty much the intermingling of masculine and feminine forces in their balance. Sex makes the world go round, both literally, figuratively, and spiritually. It makes the world go round. And how you have sex even determines a lot about your character, as the African elders have said, how you plow the fields. And the words for plow in the Kemetic language are related to phallus and penis and how you thrust, right? And once again, all this is related to your personal development. So there's ideas of Tantra, cultivating your spirit. This goes way back to Kush. And Nedjem Sekhum opens that door to see how you can regenerate your power. For example, we are told by modern spirituality that every time a man ejaculates, he's just losing power. And I was in a so-called community that spoke about that all the time in a way that we saw men denying their wives sex because they didn't want to ejaculate or hadn't cultivated the ability to hold their ejaculation, to discipline, control themselves. I had developed a fear of ejaculating in this community. Oh, I don't want to, and then that also led me to want to abstain from sex. But this idea of abstaining from sex as some downfall is an Indo-European concept and how they approach celibacy. When you read some of the celibacy literature in Europe, they're like, don't stain me with sex. You have some Indians even who will say, sex is your power, don't let it go. But if they were to read their own text, they will see that some of the sexual texts in India even say, you better ejaculate. If you don't ejaculate, you're going to hurt yourself. It's all about what? Cycles of the moon. That's why when you read the stories about Kinsu, they say from new moon to full moon, you're a bull, a great ka, a great bull. And from new moon to full moon, you're a neutered bull. You have no power. And that moon, that astrological framework is also physically talking about how blood is moving in your body, your blood pressure, because your blood pressure is aligned with the moon. The blood pressure in your head and your other head, if you're a man, is aligned with the moon. Nedjem Sekhum is a celebrating joy for Inter. It is proper sexual cultivation that is aligned with your ka, with your destiny. Can you imagine when a man knows his destiny and he's engaging in a sexual act? He's looking at that woman intimately as a goddess. He's visualizing her as Bast. He's visualizing the building of his community, his town. Do you understand how much power you get from that according to our ancestral ways? And that intimacy that is developed when you are treating that woman. We know that sex today, one of the biggest problems, we'll talk about it some other time, is the lack of intimacy between men and women. Because men, we've been trained to view women's bodies as bodies that just masturbating. Everything is destructive. We're going to tear that up. All of that is Indo-European framework, the destruction of women and the oppression, the forcefulness, really the hatred of women that white men have essentially had since they were in the caves 10,000 years ago. And not saying understandably like it's okay, when you can't find no food and you got to feed somebody else and that person's bringing children now and you got to feed them too, it starts to add to the problems of your survival, because it would be easy if you could just do it yourself. And that is exactly how the Europeans view the world, how they view material. It's them, it's their world, everybody else just living in it. So cultivating your destiny, visualizing properly, celebrating, enjoying God, and that is also how we develop our power. Another thing I want to say is that even when you read some spiritual texts in Hinduism, they will say the easiest way to cultivate your spirit is through sex. But it's also the way that you can easily lose yourself in the pleasure point of it. And because men know that dudes, when they are so caught up on just chasing women and they're ejaculating, you lose your sense of purpose. There's a feeling of worthlessness. You go blind. That old line about men going blind when they ejaculate, there's also a spiritual perspective of that. You lose your sight, your vision of what you want to do, your purpose as a man. You're here to go out and handle business and build things with women. You lose that when you ejaculate excessively. So that is the end today for our 14 call of Ra overview. There will be more detailed videos. This is our way of life here at Astro Ra. We, of course, synchronize it with astrology and the chakras so that it is more holistic to honor our ancestors, our great ancestors. And I've demonstrated this is not just some random spiritual system or leadership system that just occurs, that is made up. We've shown 7 traditions, 6 of which are black. The 7th one was Greece. And I don't want to say that Greece is just white, because it's really not. It's mixed. But 6 of which are definitely black African. Going over to China, going over to the Americas, on the continent. This system, this way of living is something that's very useful, is very much needed. And if you think that this is very useful to you, then please comment, subscribe, share. It's been a great talk with you. I hope this has provided great clarity as it has for us. Peace.